Welcome to the Tales of Persia. We're reading stories from the Shahnameh, the monumental Persian epic of kings and heroes. This is Episode 1. The First Kings, the Reign of Kayumars. What does the Persian poet say about the first man to seek the crown of world sovereignty? No one has any knowledge of those first days unless he has heard tales passed down from father to son. This is what those tales tell. The first man to be king and to establish the ceremonies associated with the crown and throne was Kayumars. When he became lord of the world, he lived first in the mountains where he established his throne, and he and his people dressed in leopard skins. It was he who first taught men about the preparation of food and clothing, which were new in the world at that time. Seated on his throne as splendid as the sun, he reigned for 30 years. He was like a tall cypress tree topped by the full moon, and the royal far shone from him. All the animals of the world, wild and tame alike, reverently paid homage to him, bowing down before his throne, and their obedience increased his glory and good fortune. He had a handsome son who was wise and eager for fame like his father. His name was Shahnameh, and Kayumars loved him with all his heart. The sight of his son was the one thing in the world that made him happy, and his love for the boy made him weep when he thought of their being separated. Shahnameh grew into a fine young man, and he had no enemies except for Ahriman, who was secretly jealous of his splendor and looked for ways to humble him. Ahriman had a son who was like a savage wolf. This fearless youth gathered an army together, spread sedition throughout the world, and prepared to attack the king. Kayumars was unaware of these machinations, but the angel Soroush appeared before Shahnameh in the guise of a magical being swathed in a leopard skin, and told him of the plots against his father. The prince's heart seethed with fury, and he gathered an army together. There was no armor at that time, and the prince dressed for war in a leopard skin. The two armies met face to face, and Shahnameh strode forward to attack, but the black demon sunk his claws into the prince's unprotected body and stretched the noble Shahnameh in the dust. Now in the dirt he laid the king's son low, clawed at his gut, and struck the fatal blow. So perished Shahnameh, a demon's hand, left leaderless, his people and his land. When the king heard of his son's death, his world darkened with sorrow. He descended from the throne weeping and beating his head, and scoring his royal flesh in an agony of distress. His face was smeared with blood, his heart was in mourning, and his days were filled with sorrow. The army was arrayed before the king, and a cry of grief went up from its ranks. Everyone wore blue as a sign of mourning. And all the animals, wild and tame alike, and the birds of the air gathered and made their way weeping and crying to the mountains. And the dust sent up by the throng of mourners hovered in the air above the king's court. They mourned for a year, until the glorious Soroush brought a message from God saying, "Kayumars, weep no more, but be of sound mind again. Gather an army together and fight against this malevolent demon." The king turned his weeping face toward the heavens and prayed to the great God that evil strike those who think evil. Then he prepared to avenge the death of Shahnameh, neither sleeping at night nor pausing to eat in the day. King Kayumars has his divine command for vengeance, but who will lead the army against the dark forces that killed his son Shahnameh? Join us next time for Episode 2 and the Path of the Avenger. And don't forget to follow and subscribe right here on the Tales of Persia.